situation now has much more to do with Russia than anything else.
Let me go back. We'll come back to those damn emails. It's an amazing chapter, by the way, Secretary Clinton, and I want to get into it. But first, I want to talk to you about journalism for a moment. Page 59 to 60, Getting Started, a chapter about April 2015. You head off in the famous Maumee, Ohio Chipotle Burrito Bowl. You write, I had a stack of memos to read and a long list of calls to make. I had also Googled every NPR station from Westchester to Des Moines, all set for a long drive. So you clearly weren't listening to me on that drive, Madam Secretary.
Well, I will from now on, Hugh. Absolutely.
But the serious point I have to make is, did you ever listen to Rush or Mark Levin or my Salem colleagues, Prager, Medved, Gallagher, me, to try and figure out what our audience was thinking and talking about?
I did in the past. Now, I will not lump you in the same category as some of the others, simply because I have read your blog, I have followed your writing, I have very occasionally found time to listen to you. And I may not agree with you on your observations all the time, but I have always believed that you are a thoughtful person who is trying to present a point of view that could be both justified and defended. So, yes, I understand the anger. I understand the resentment. I understand the very strong feelings that a lot of people in our country have about everything from the economy to race to immigration to national defense. But this is probably another one of my shortcomings, you know, I've never thought anger was a good strategy for actually getting things done. And I know when you served in the Reagan administration, when you served in government, I'm sure that, you were somebody who was trying to figure out what the facts and the evidence was in order to make the best possible decisions. So I'm a little allergic to the kind of bombast and craziness that I sometimes hear from others, because I think it has really undermined our ability to work together across partisan lines. I mean, the things that were said about me, the conspiracies that were promoted about me were just incredibly shocking. I mean, I mentioned them to people, and at first they look shocked, and then they laugh a little, and I said, it's really not that funny, because when somebody says something about you, like, oh, my gosh, you run a child trafficking ring, or some ridiculous accusation, it does tear at the body politic. We can have our differences, and I've always thought you were one of the people who was on that side, like, okay, I have real differences. I'm going to explain what I think, but even having me on your show today demonstrates that, you're somebody who wants to have, a real discussion about the issues that we face.
I regret, though, that your staff was very protective during the campaign. If you'd sat down with me, we would have talked about, the nuclear triad and the Columbia-class submarines, and we also have talked about Burma and the Rohingya and all sorts of things, but they kept you away from, the thoughtful people on the right, and they are legion. They sealed you off from it. And moreover, you write in What Happened that you tend to treat journalists with caution. I often feel they focus too much on the wrongdoing. But, Madam Secretary, when the first New York Times story came out about the server by Michael Schmidt and Matt Apuzzo, your team, according to Eric Wemple of the Washington Post, came to beatdowns with clubs. They really just shattered those guys' reputation, forced them backwards, and unapologetically so. Did they protect you too much, and did they hit back too hard at legitimate critics and questions?
Well, let me answer that this way, Hugh. I think, as I say about the book, I did think that I had to be careful in public, and probably I did have my guard up too much. Those days are over. I am trying to be as candid and open as I can be, because I think there's a lot at stake. And if my voice can help us get our country back on track, where we begin to have, reason-based discussions about our differences again, and try to chart a path forward that actually makes sense and can be supported by facts, I want to be part of that debate. So I will take responsibility, because clearly it is challenging when the press, and not just the press on the right, but the press in general, decide that, my emails are the most important story of the campaign. And that clearly was just pounded day after day after day. And I take responsibility for the mistake I made, but it was a pretty overblown scandal as far as scandals go. And then when there is a deliberate effort to misinterpret facts, like the whole Uranium One charge, that is something that has been kept alive despite constant debunking. Similar to the tragedy in Benghazi, where I testified at length. I answered every question. There was, I think, 8 or 9 investigations, more than half run by Republicans in the Congress, and they all came to the same conclusion that I had not done anything wrong, and it was not enough, and it became still a big political drum to beat against me. So I do have mixed feelings. I think it's fair to say, and I am going to try to, do more with people like you because I think it's important that we talk to each other. So yes, I'm going to talk to people who I believe are interested in talking. Disagree with me, I disagree with them, whatever it might be. But if we don't start talking and listening to each other, I am really worried about what happens to our democracy.
I agree with that. On